MindSpace. Chad is joining us in the room. How you doing, Chad? Chad's on mute.
Hi, Suzanne. Very well. Hopefully everyone's doing well there as well. That was a fantastic presentation from Amanda.
Yeah, we've had a really good lineup today. It's been an exciting morning and the afternoon's kicked off strong. So we're going to count on you to carry the torch. Chad is with MindSpace. He is the director of products and strategy over at MindSpace. Chad, where in the world are you coming from today?
Phoenix, Arizona. This is, of course, a depiction of our beautiful Monument Valley up in the northern part of the state.
Okay. So we've had folks from, let's see, New Jersey, London, Phoenix, Arizona. I think Amanda's out in Ohio. So all over the world today. And our audience is all over the world too. We've had folks from Argentina. Daniela says she's from Argentina. I know we had folks from Nigeria, all over the place. So we're going, Mexico is also in the house.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you've got a great audience, Chad. We're going to hand things over to you. I think we're going to share your presentation for you. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I believe we're going to start with a poll as well.
Okay. You want to kick the poll off first?
I certainly could. I want to encourage everybody here to really take a moment to just kind of think about what your learning culture is in your organization, whether you're a leader of that culture, whether you're participating in that culture, and really think about how you would rate that learning culture, especially as it rates here to 2020. So you can see there up on the screen, 1 being a failing culture, 5 being an outstanding culture. Would love for you to just kind of take a moment, pick which one is appropriate. We're not judging. We're not going to presuppose anything, but we do want to get kind of a little bit of an introduction on what we're going to be talking about today. So, as Suzanne said, my name is Chad Bellin. I'm the Director of Products and Strategy at MindSpace. We're located in Phoenix, Arizona. If you're familiar with the Phoenix area, our offices are Tempe, right next to the very innovative, as it were, Arizona State University. So we've had actually a chance to partner with Arizona State on a couple of different projects in the past, and it's a really unique location for us there. So on the poll results, we have nobody that's failing, which is great. Looks like 56% of the vast majority of people think their learning culture in their company is functional. 3 think it's outstanding, and some think it's improving. So that's a really good place to be in, and it's actually a really common place to be in as far as the learning culture goes. Learning and training departments have often been viewed as a cost center and not necessarily an investment. And I think 2020 has begun to change that a little bit. With everything that's happened, we're seeing companies that are actively adjusting and valuing all kinds of different training and learning experiences more. And they're trying to get ahead of the curve. This is not only a differentiator in the marketplace when you're attracting and keeping talent, but it also comes in and helps out with operational things and those other important areas of actually excelling and exceeding as a company. A lot of companies are trying to reconnect with employees. Obviously, everybody's working remote or in different parts of the world. Companies are really trying to focus on making sure that their employees are connected and engaged and feel included and feel special. So that focus on employees extends not only to people that have been there, but again, to those new hires. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. There's a lot of people that are trying to adjust, a lot of people trying to figure out what they can do. A lot of people are networking. One of the things that I'll mention at the end is I'm always available via email or LinkedIn or those kinds of things, just to talk, just to, hey, Chad, I have a question about, what kinds of things might be possible. We're always happy to ideate at MindSpace with people who are trying to solve these problems, because ultimately those problems are really difficult, and it's difficult as somebody who's responsible for learning and training to be versed in technology and versed in gamification and versed in all of the training standards, all of those things at once. There is a change to digital, and that can seem impersonal. However, more and more people are becoming familiar with having Zoom meetings or having Google Meets or different things like that, and having just the nuances of having your camera on, or sharing 5 minutes of kind of that pre-meeting banter, or just connecting with other people kind of in that way, can often mean the difference between a disconnected or stale type of experience and one that's a lot more vibrant and a lot more lively that participants will feel better about. So I want to talk about a few projects that we're currently engaged in that demonstrate some of these changes that we've had to go through for 2020. We'll get to that in a minute, one slide ahead. So we're currently working with a major financial company who everybody would know their name. They have a very, very iconic career development program. That career development program is typically a one-day ILT, and it's a big deal. People come in from all over the country, all over the place to one spot to really go through this journey. This journey often happens in their first year to 18 months in the company. This program has been featured in the Harvard Business Review. Like, it's a very, very, very credible and important program. But with the way 2020 has inhibited travel and impacted business, they have not had a way to gather everybody in person and to really allow people to have that experience. Because the company's been growing, they've been thinking about other ways to actually feature this program as well. But basically this summer, they were desperate for different ways that they could evolve the program and different things that they could do. So we began with a bit of a consultation. Really, what is this program? What are those things that we can do? And what are those things that are missing? How can we maybe keep the brand of this program, which is a very famous and notable brand, and evolve it so that maybe we kind of preserve this ILT experience as kind of the base experience, but there are now these alternative experiences. So we talked about things like capturing data that they weren't capturing now. We talked about defining follow-up milestones and really keeping that cohort that takes this together, following up with each other over time, and how are they doing on their career progression and their career goals. So the result is that we help them to take this one ILT, 8 hours all day, and spread it over a week, and really keep those same interactions in the same core focuses, but spread them out and really divide up that time so that it felt a little bit more inclusive. We could still have instructor-led parts, we can still have cohort parts, and we can still have some of that individual work that you'd normally get in the ILT, but is now available kind of spread out over the course of a couple of days. We're also having new metrics and new data, and they're running these pilots for the first time, but they definitely are looking forward to having those follow up in the future. Likewise, we've helped a global food and beverage company. They came to us with a 26-week sales onboarding. And this did everything from mentoring to simulations to also an ILT and many other different activities, coaching and things like that along the way. And obviously, this program required a lot of in-person interaction. It required some remote in phone calls and Zoom meetings and things like that. But the focus of the middle of this training was really this, again, ILT. And so like we did with the financial company, we helped them to concept breaking apart this ILT into a week, making sure that people were connecting with their colleagues in their cohorts, sharing their training experience up to that point, sharing their success, sharing their struggles, but also making those activities more digestible and more appropriate. It's obviously very difficult to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours in a given day, going through an entire meeting. So breaking those up into 90-minute or 60-minute or even 30-minute chunks was really successful. Again, they're going through that launch right now. And the follow-up to that is we're taking a broader look at that entire 26 weeks, not only to maybe collapse the time frame a little bit more, but again, starting to analyze that data, making sure that we can suggest some restructuring of those different activities to make them more efficient. So now we'll move on to the next slide and talk about really what is culture. What is that learning culture? And you can see from this screen here, and if you're falling asleep or getting a little bored, feel free to shout out some words that you see in the word art here. Exciting doesn't count because that's right across the middle, very easy to see. But if you look through the word art here, you'll see a lot of these words that our team has come up with to really talk about what is a healthy, what is an innovative learning culture. You'll see things like engaging. You'll see things like rewarding, proactive, useful, results, purposeful. These are all those words that we want to ingrain into our culture to really get our team, our learners, our company, our organization really flowing in the right way. Learning is celebrated. It's really something to actually do and something to engage in. And it really kind of sets the tone for things overall. So defining culture so these are all the things that you want to look for and be fostering and engaging. Now let's talk about culture. Culture are the patterns, the rules, the standards, and I'm reading off my cue card here, the attitudes, the values, morals, goals, customs, habits, achievements, all of a shared group of people. These are all shared, they're valued, and they're understood. These are the things that make up a culture. So even if you look at non-learning and training cultures, if you look at all of our global cultures that exist, cultures within inside companies, they basically all fit into this. And so this is really, as somebody who is participating in a training or a learning culture, or somebody who's leading a training or learning culture, all of these parts and pieces really help to define what that culture is. And we'll move on to the next slide and talk about some of the things that we want to avoid. Again, feel free, wake yourself up a little bit. What of these words jump out at you? And selfish doesn't count. Nepotism, disengaged, helpless, reactive, static, hurtful, silly. All of these things are things that nobody means to be part of their learning culture. Nobody goes out and says, we want to have a thankless learning culture, or we want to have a careless learning culture. But sometimes they slip in, and sometimes they slip in unintended. Sometimes there's bad actors that have a really bad opinion or attitude about the particular training. Sometimes it's just, things aren't going well at the company and everybody's sort of down, and now I got to take this training, and, or somebody got a promotion over me and they haven't been here as long, or they don't know as much. So all of these kinds of things can infiltrate your culture. And we're going to talk about the building blocks of culture in a minute, but these are some of those things to look out for, and certainly some of those things to identify and help to root out of your actual culture. So looking ahead, what is it that we can do to sort of foster and build that innovative learning culture? What are those things that we need to pay attention to? And one of the things that I'll say here at the beginning is culture is not something that one person dictates or prescribes. It is that shared experience of the entire group of people. So you really, to start off with, have to consider this first building block, which is people. So, and we know from participating in this this globalized world, we have all different kinds of people. We have people of different ages. We have people of different ethnicities, backgrounds, persuasions, different actual global cultures. And so understanding your audience and understanding who is part of the company or organization is absolutely critical and so important. These people can be in different subgroups as well. They might be new hires. They might be employees with specific skills. So if you have engineers or tradespeople or various specialists in different ways, these people might need to be particularly addressed. I myself lead a group of engineers. As a leader of engineers, it's different than leading a team of electricians, or it's different than leading a team at a call center. Engineers are very smart. They'll question a lot of things that we do. Why are we doing this? Why do I have to spend time on it? So all of these audiences are really unique. Amanda talked about this in her presentation last hour. Leadership training is so important. The leadership not only needs to be trained on the values and the norms that the company would like to hold up, but they also need to help foster this culture and be taught how to do that if they don't necessarily do it. They might not always agree with things that are being taught or being talked about as far as here's the training courses or here's what we need to do. But they need to be supportive. If you have leaders that are not supportive or are detractors, even worse, they may tend to get into some of those words that we saw in the word art there. High potential leaders are a particular subset. We've had the opportunity to work with a couple of global companies on their high potential leadership programs. That is a really unique audience. And maybe your audience is outside of your company. Maybe it's channel. Maybe it's partnerships. Maybe it's customers that you're actually looking for. Those groups of people should require a special attention as well. All of these audiences are unique, and they are the building block of what that learning culture is going to end up being. I wanted to take a minute to just talk about one of the most unique audiences that we at MindSpace have had the chance to interact with, and that is the NBA and the NBA Players Association. This was admittedly a very long sales cycle that took over 2 years. But we finally got the opportunity to work first with the NBA Players Association, which is the labor union that represents all of the players, and then eventually the NBA. And this was just amazing to hear a lot of the stakeholders who we interacted with as a project team. Some of these people were from outside of sports, some were former players, but they all understood that this group of people, about 500 people globally, was a very unique audience. We've had the chance through our programs to even carve that audience even further. We've had the opportunity to work with their Top 100 program, which is actually an elite high school basketball camp. These players are 16 and 17 years old. So imagine as a learning and training professional going in and talking to 16 and 17-year-olds about social media, for example, different topics like that. That was an absolutely amazing experience. Rookies that were just drafted, we had the opportunity to do the rookie transition program last year. These are, imagine you're a first round draft pick in the NBA, you've just signed your first contract, maybe you have endorsement deals already, and now you're invited to New Jersey for 3 days to sit through some chats from former players and to participate in group activities and stuff like that. A very unique challenge to keep that particular group of audience, a group of guys engaged and motivated. We've also had the chance to work with teams as a whole. So they have a program that they actually deliver to teams, which is called the Team Awareness Programs, and they talk about different topics. And so everybody from LeBron James to the newest rookie would have been in the room for the Lakers, for example. That also required a particular knowledge. And I'll be happy, in the after party to talk a little bit more about some of those experiences that we've had with the NBA. But all audiences are unique. Some are more unique, and don't be afraid to really embrace your people, because they're instrumental to your learning culture. So secondly, how you talk and message about the learning culture is really, really important. This is one of those things, not having worked in learning and training prior to joining MindSpace about 4.5 years ago, I didn't appreciate how important this was, but it is vitally important to make sure that you are messaging and you're communicating effectively to your audience and making them feel excited. So if you're sending generic emails, if your email link is broken, if you have a global audience and you're not translating that email, you can call Matt and Gary after to get some translation quotes. But these are things that are going to impact the learner and their perception of your program. If you don't care about them, why should they care about you? Are you doing things like telling or letting out messaging before you tell managers to all employees? Or are you preparing managers for, here's what's expected, here's what we're measuring, here's what your team can do, all of those kinds of things ahead of time? That's, again, going to be much more effective. Is anyone confused? Do you have mixed messages going on, or is there fake news going on with respect to what's happening in your learning and training communications? Those can all, again, have an impact on people and their perception of what's happening. In general, people like knowing what's going on. They like to know what the expectation is. They like to see that expectation be upheld and followed through on. And if there's a process and things are happening reasonably and there's incentive to do those things, then that culture will sort of be drawn into that more comfortable place. So that messaging, how you're communicating, what you're communicating, if you're shouting into the phone, that's probably not going to be the most effective way. We talked about the micromanager in the last session. That is not going to be as popular as making that stuff more available. I wanted to share a story about the tone and the actual style of communication. So we had the opportunity to consult with a global beverage company. They had their annual sales meeting, and this annual sales meeting is global. People from all over the place. They pick a global location. Everybody flies in. It's a week long. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of professional development. Obviously, some free time and different things like that. But really, with 2020 being as it is, they weren't able to do that this year. And the leader of the sales training organization came to us and she's like, I literally don't know what to do. She said, we're going to have this virtual event. It's going to be a lot different. It's not like anything that we've ever experienced before. But we started with crafting this message, talking about how even though this is a big deal and even though 2020, this could be an amazing opportunity. We still get to interact with our colleagues. We still get to talk about all of those fantastic wins that we've had. We still have a chance for professional development. One of the unique things that happened was because it was a virtual event, they had access to literally top global executives that they wouldn't normally have access to come in and speak to this group for 30 minutes, to do roundtables, to do Q&As. They had the opportunity to schedule breakouts and to actually work through valuable activities and scenarios and things like that. So there's a lot of positive things going on with this change, despite the fact that, it's kind of a bummer that, nobody got to travel or any of those kinds of things. So that messaging and that curation of what this event would be was vitally important. They just had that event about a month ago, and it was wildly successful. Everybody had a good time, gave it good reviews at the end, talked about some of those things that they'd like to see. Even when this event goes back to an in-person event, they really want to see more of some of those changes that they've actually implemented. So it turned out to be very positive. So moving on to the third building block. The third building block is the experience. So you can consider your culture. You can consider your messaging. But if the experience is not great, none of that stuff is going to matter. It's going to be like hype, 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 and then, deflated balloon all over the place. So experience is so, so important. And where that comes to bear first is really understanding what you're trying to do and what the reaction to that is. So as petty as some of those surveys and things like that can be, ask for that feedback and then be prepared to act on it. Care enough that if somebody's telling you the things that they have liked and disliked, that you take that into consideration. Now, of course, maybe that data could be off base, but if one person is having that experience, maybe it's reflective of more people who maybe aren't sharing their opinion as easily. But there's no way that you can really understand that you're having a good experience unless it is a good experience, as validated by the people that are going and taking it. One of the most effective ways to gather that feedback is kind of off the record, being there and chatting, virtually if needs be. If you have an in-person event, kind of chatting there, but getting some of that in the moment reaction, in the moment feel of what's going on or how it's going. And you can certainly kind of monitor the energy in the room as well. But if something's not working, learners are just going through the motions, there's not going to be a lot of value there. A lot of people think that the experience is tied directly to technology. That can very well be true, especially now when all of the virtual interactions and different e-learning and all of those things are coming to bear. Technology is super, super noisy. If you've been in this industry for any length of time at all, you know that there's thousands of vendors. We're one of them, and there's a lot of mixed messaging. It's really difficult to figure out who can actually solve my problem. So use technology, evaluate technology, but don't underdo it and don't overdo it. If something like Zoom or Google Meet or something like that is appropriate, you can use that. If you want to use a survey tool or something like Kahoot or Mentimeter, which we actually did use for the NBA, those tools worked really, really well in those small group environments. Go ahead and use those, but make sure there's some cohesion. Make it easy. Make sure that people understand, because you're not necessarily dealing with 20 to 25-year-olds. You might be dealing with millennials. You might be dealing with your Gen Xers. You might be dealing with people who are at the tail end of their careers. Really need to consider, is this technology appropriate for your audience? And limit the number of platforms. There's no way that anybody can keep track of 14 different platforms, all over the place. One for this, one for that. Oh, it's not on this one this time, it's over here. All of those different kinds of things. Limit the number of platforms. If you are adding a new platform, consider why and consider how it integrates with your existing platform. Many organizations are going to a central learning record store. So there's kind of a central database for all of the training records, and then different systems kind of feed into that. That's one approach that could be very effective. Your IT team is probably already limiting your exposure to all of the technologies, but definitely be sure to pay attention to those technologies because it matters as part of the experience. One of the things that MindSpace is known for and has a lot of experience in is gamification. Overdo it. One of the examples that we had from our NBA experience is that we had a gamification system set up. There was individual incentives, there was team incentives. And then at the last minute, one of our stakeholders was like, hey, we have this golden basketball. We should throw this golden basketball around and make this part of the gamification. Well, carrying around the golden basketball was very attractive to these basketball players because it was, kind of an outward status symbol. But it really took away from the gamification that we had designed. Gamification is something that really at its core is psychology. What things are going to motivate the learner in this case to do the things that we want them to do? What are those items that would incentivize or get somebody to take a training or to complete a training or to take it in a certain amount of time? It doesn't always have to be physical. It could be, think of, Girl Scout or Boy Scout badges. You can have that banner of badges. The interesting thing about gamification really is when you tie it into your overall corporate culture. What does it mean that I've taken 16 more trainings than Kathy? What does it mean that I have a level 3 in my training and Sergio only has a level 2. Those are things that should be defined as part of gamification. If it's just gamification for gamification's sake, it's probably not going to be effective. But if you've actually thought through how the program can actually influence your users, it stands a high chance of success. So that's another one of those things that happy to talk in the after party, happy to talk offline about gamification and different strategies there. And so often, learning and training from a company isn't branded. It's not visually appealing. You've gotten that, and I'll throw some of the big guys under the bus here. We just got that training from Cornerstone, and it is what it is. It's the inclusion training, so we just go take that. That is not really going to connect well to a user. Nobody wants to take something that's sort of unbranded and generic and very boring. So when you have a chance to brand your programs, when you have a chance to make the color, it's easy as making the colors match your corporate colors, add in your corporate logos, make sure that the training is visually appealing and that it's easy to go through. If you're having people take it on their mobile phones, make sure that it's adapted to mobile, those kinds of things. But that visual experience and the overall creativity that goes into the training is really, really important. And that makes a difference in how everybody is going to perceive that. Now, I will assign everybody here some homework. And that homework is to go to our website, which is www.mindspace.net. Go into the work section and find our case study on FedEx. Our FedEx work is a great example of kind of combining all of these experiences that I just talked about and really understanding how that particular program would have impacted the company versus some other types of executions of that program. So finally, we get to the last building block, and that is data. It's data and results. It is very, very important that you gather data about your programs. When we talk about building a culture a lot of times is based on perceptions and some things that might not be true that people believe are true sometimes. And the only way to really feed that back into the culture is to collect data. Know that 98% of our workforce has completed the mandatory compliance training. 2% are left to go. So please encourage your teammates or your staff members, whoever hasn't completed the training. We need to get to 100% because that's an important benchmark to us. We need to know who is doing things, and we need to then start to be able to, even beyond the data, start to analyze the results. What do these results mean? What are those areas where we can tie these to actual business results? What are those things that maybe we're failing at, that we're not coming up to speed on, or that might be impacting honestly the bottom line? Some groups are really good at gathering the data. Some groups are really good at then analyzing the data. Nobody has this completely figured out. So the first step in really determining those results is to actually just start collecting data, whether it's that survey data, whether it's percents complete, how long it takes people to take particular training, any of those kinds of really easy, straightforward metrics. Those are the things to start, just keeping track of. Once you start keeping track of them, then you can start to analyze them. Why is it that only 56% of people are completing this particular operational training? Why is it that only 3% of our workforce has even signed up for it? Those are some of those very compelling things that can then lead into that conversation about the business metrics. Without gathering the data up front, there's nothing to analyze, and there's really nothing to connect that through. I'll relate a story here. So one of our large customers is Google, and has been for some time. We've had the opportunity to work with many groups with inside Google. One of the groups that we work with very extensively is the partnership enablement team, and what that team does is really evangelizes Google technology on a global basis. So they work with manufacturers like Samsung or Lenovo, all the way down to T-Mobile and even retailers. Data is vitally important to them. I was just, as part of my job on our global meeting this morning, where we have 3 different vendors and 2 different Google stakeholders where we coordinate on a weekly basis. All of the details that are going on with the system. And the first thing that's very important is attribution. Who is coming into the system? Who is taking what? How is that impacting Google's relationship with that company? That is absolutely vitally important. But we get into even more of the nuances about how quickly people are getting through the training. How likely are they to complete it? How likely are they to complete it in different languages? What are those statistics? Is the pass rate different for a particular subset of people versus another? And these are used to continually fine-tune the training to get to the point where they are delivering that training and delivering that message as effectively as they can. So this is an example. Obviously, dealing with Google, it might be a little bit more of a different relationship than just going in and working in your 400-person company. But gathering the data, then analyzing the data can really lead you to a tremendous amount of success. So just as kind of a wrap up here, the 4 building blocks that you're going to need to keep in mind for building the innovative learning culture, you certainly need to consider your people and your audience. Very, very important. It's the key to everything from a culture standpoint. Be sure that you're driving the communication and influencing that communication. Want to make sure that the message is getting out right, and that it has the proper tone and the proper connotation. Make sure the experience is good. If the experience is bad, just like at a restaurant, just with a technician that comes to your house, you're not going to call them back, and you're not going to be a raving fan. And then finally, pay attention to your data. With all of that, I know we're going to open it up for some questions and answers. I want to thank Gary, thank Matt, everybody who did such a tremendous job of putting this day together. I was very, very happy and honored to be a part of it, and look forward to your questions and hopefully have some answers for them right here. And then we'll obviously switch over to the after party afterwards.
Thanks so much, Chad. That was really good material. I had to unmute myself there for a minute. Thanks for joining us from Arizona today. Couple of things that you pointed out. I love the fact that you specifically outlined the 3 segments: the people, the culture, the messaging, and the experience. And I also liked when you were talking about the NBA and the program that you worked with there, and potentially having LeBron James and a rookie in the same room. What specifically in that specific story, like, how did you have to adapt the training to ensure that it would be digested by both of those extremes?
So in this case, it turned into a lot more of a facilitated discussion than an actual presentation. So we structured that material to allow for guys who felt comfortable speaking up in front of the team, because not everybody is an extrovert. Not everybody, even if you've been in the league for 15 years, wants to get up and say stuff in front of their teammates. So we did have the cooperation of our stakeholders in the room to identify a couple of people and then be able to work in the structure that we provided to deliver that training. Some of it was presentational style material. Some of it was discussion questions, things like that. Hey, player, could you tell your story about XYZ and things like that. And the dynamic is even different. If it's player to player, it's different than if it includes a larger group even. I mean, I had the experience of going to the rookie transition program, and I have always, I've also coached basketball, youth basketball for a long time. And I love to, say, how many NBA players do you think I have, phone numbers of and things like that? But me not being an NBA player, and when an NBA player or former NBA player talk to each other, it's such a different dynamic. And so it was really eye-opening, I think, for all of us at MindSpace to really understand, like we think we know, but what we really found out about working with the league and working with the Players Association was absolutely astonishing. And there was a little bit of trial and error, not going to lie. But I think we found some of those things that were really valuable to the players and allowed them to really get the most out of the material.
And, I don't know if you called this out specifically, but it kind of, that particular story highlights that a lot of times we need to engage the team in the learning material, which sounds like that's kind of what you did there. So is that true in the corporate world as well?
Absolutely. There is nothing worse than having training that nobody asked for. Hey, we have this great new training on, fixing meters. Nobody asked for that training. Everybody knows already how to do it. That's sort of lands with a thud. And why did we spend this time and money and effort and things like that? So it does go to kind of the point of really a lot of the things that I talked about, being in touch with your audience and things like that. It makes you company cultures. Managers will go to the training team and say, we need blah training. We need diversity training. We need soft skills training. We need managerial training, whatever it is. So there is kind of that proactive feedback, but the healthy culture would go in and encourage sort of those side conversations and say, we have all these things. What is the one thing that we're missing here? Or is a program that we're doing not as effective as it could be, and maybe why? So that inquisitiveness and that thirst for always evolving and always changing is part of a very healthy culture, honestly.
Yeah, good stuff, Chad. Really good stuff. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely.
So we're going to get you over to the live after party room. And for the folks that are joining us, I want to join you there for some additional questions. You can join Chad in the after party at this Zoom link. You will be able to ask questions and engage with Chad directly there. And it is a separate Zoom meeting. So Zoom only allows you to be a part of one Zoom meeting. So you will have to log out of the webinar, but please come back and join us, because our next speaker up is David Kelly, and you can log back into the webinar, hop on, hop off, and you guys can meet Chad over in the waiting room for the after party. So thanks again, Chad, for joining us. So for now, we're going to welcome